Rob Parker joining us on the phone. Rob, thanks for joining us here on Caps Talk.
Hi, John. Nice to talk to you again.
Good to talk with you, and this time in a live format for everyone to hear. So tell me about your thoughts on the Dallas game. Are you feeling glass half full because of the way that it finished? And if the post was a little kinder, who knows what might have happened in the final moments off that Tom Wilson shot, or glass half empty because of the second period? I feel like our pulse of it's been a little bit both ways.
I'm probably a little bit more glass half full, surprisingly enough. They have a cushion in the standings, so objectively, they can afford to drop a game here or there. But when you get into the specifics, it's never a game that you want to lose. And seeing them up against a heavyweight out west, and really for the first 40 minutes, it looked like the Dallas speed was overwhelming. That was kind of ugly, but the third period was definitely a good showing. And then when I went back and looked at a few of the goals, the first goal and the third goal were uncharacteristic offensive zone blue line turnovers. The second goal, you had Nate Schmidt trying to cover Jamie Benn in front of the net. Obviously, that's not ideal, and when the team's healthy, hopefully that's Brooks Orpik there. So you got to know those are the type of goals against that the coaching staff is going to focus on, and I look at that as a bit more of a freak night for them, not a great night, but they didn't quit. They came back and made it a game at the end, and against a team that can run away from team scoring, that's, I guess, a silver lining.
Not as much of a worry then as far as team speed and containing it. I feel like most of the games that we have seen, especially in the Eastern Conference, and for all the success that the Capitals have had, let's be honest, there haven't been that many bad games, but when there have been, does a team with that kind of speed, is that a concern moving forward, or you see that Saturday in the second period is just a blip on the radar and don't worry about it?
Well, it's definitely a concern because it showed what can happen when you don't make smart decisions against a team with that kind of speed. There was those turnovers at the blue line, and just in general, a lot of sloppy passing in the neutral zone. And you see a team like Dallas who is really looking to counterattack. You give them free pucks when you don't have guys necessarily in their defensive structure, and they're going to come back at you. And it was a shooting gallery. I think Trotz said he pulled Holtby to save him from the team's defense rather than the other way around. So definitely a concern, but it's something that the team wasn't the fastest team in the playoffs last year. They found a way to slow down the Islanders. They were competitive with the Rangers, who, they love to talk about their own team speed. So you knew it was going to be kind of a question. But all year they've seemed to have managed it. It's just more of an indication that they really do need to be paying attention to their details, passing the puck well, making smart decisions so they don't get overrun on the counterattack.
Rob Parker joining us from Japers Rink as we head into the home stretch here on Caps Talk for this Monday. Orpik, yeah, sounds, we just had the soundbite in the last segment, did not confirm, nor did Barry Trotz, but maybe as close as we have heard to feeling pretty good about his chances of getting in. He goes on the road trip, he doesn't play, he practices with a team, now he has another practice today. There was no sense in rushing Brooks Orpik back, given this lead, as he would face a team that, and really the next two, where you've got Los Angeles in tomorrow, you've got the game in New York. These are two teams that like to hit. I would think that if Brooks is ready to go, those are the kind of games that he relishes, and it might be a nice place to get him back in. Yeah,
I mean, he would probably like that. It puts him right into his element. I kind of lean towards the way you open that. There's no sense in rushing him. I'm sure if he can get his foot in the skate and he can get on the ice, if there was the playoffs, he would be out there. But let's take this time. Let's let Nate Schmidt play those top pair minutes and get used to kind of the intensity of the pressure situations so that when he does move back to that third pair, he and Orlov are ready to just steamroll teams. I know Orpik has got to be itching to get out there, but for me, if you see a particularly physical matchup and he's still hurting a little bit, maybe you take the next one and let him come back and ease into play. But again, once he says he can go, I have a feeling it's going to be hard to keep him out of the lineup.
It's been a question, Rob, that we posed to Craig Laughlin, and Patrick, our last caller, had mentioned it, and his thoughts on it anyway, about what you do between now and the 29th of February. And the feeling is that when you walk into the Capitals dressing room, the team and the vibe in the room is, I think, if you ask anybody, one of the tightest that we have seen in Washington in forever, maybe. And you've got a team where you've got a lot of guys overperforming compared to their numbers, or young guys that have stepped up into bigger roles. Do you feel between now and February 29th? Maybe with the exception of adding maybe a depth D or something like that, just maybe a small tweak. Nothing, any real concerns that you might want to address via the trade deadline, or are you happy with the way things are?
If they're confident that Brooks Orpik is going to be healthy and that's not going to be a thing that's going to come back and take him out of the lineup for a huge chunk of time, I'm actually pretty set with the D. You'd need to find, for it to make sense, a guy better than Schmidt or Orlov, and I don't think that guy for the price that makes sense to this team exists. So I would rather roll with those 6. I even think Chorney has been pretty good when he's gotten his chances. So obviously if there's a great deal to be had, then look at it. But if I were going to tweak anything, I might add another middle 6 wing, just to try to put a little more depth there, because guys might slump or get injured. I don't think they need it. I think it would be certainly a luxury, but they talked a little bit at the beginning of the season about the concept of having those 3 scoring lines, and having seen how successful Johansson has been in that third line center, maybe putting a little bit more talent on one of those wings, either bumping Wilson to the fourth line for the playoff run or bumping Chimera if it's a left winger. That loads up the fourth line, that gives you a potentially third line that can really score, and that would just be an embarrassment of riches. So that's sort of where I would look. But again, to your point on the chemistry and the success they've had so far, there's definitely no sense in forcing anything or overpaying for anything in the terms of futures assets.
Rob, are you surprised at all about what Marcus Johansson has been able to do, given that he's been in a lot of different places on the roster? We've seen him on the top line. We've seen him on the left side of the second line, and making that move and playing with Chimera and Wilson is sometimes, you may not have even found this out if the Jay Beagle injury doesn't happen, and you certainly never hope for anyone to get hurt. But did we learn something with a Beagle injury that we might not have learned otherwise? And what about Marcus's success, if anything surprises you?
Yeah, it was a surprise to me, because when you go back to last season training camp, there was the Kuznetsov, Burakovsky, Johansson battle for that second line center, and Johansson was actually the first guy to drop out, and it ended up being Burakovsky and Kuznetsov for a little while. So that kind of told me that on this first look, Barry Trotz was really not happy with having Johansson down the middle, or at least thought he was a less good option than, the 18, 19-year-old Burakovsky. So I thought that sort of signaled the ending of his experimentation down the middle, and figured he could be a good neutral zone wing, coming up ice with speed, playing some smart defense. But to have him come down there and then immediately make that line a little bit more dangerous, and he looked pretty comfortable as well, that was a bit of a surprise.
Mike Richards and Justin Williams going to face their former team tomorrow night with Los Angeles in town. Obviously going to be emotional for them. For Richards, it's been 11 games now. We've seen him a lot on the penalty kill. We've seen him, for the most part, not entirely, but for the most part, have had pretty good success in the dot. The offense is still coming, but, being on the fourth line, that's certainly part of it, perhaps. Where are you at on Mike Richards through 11 games now in a Capitals uniform?
Well, given the circumstances and the layoff he had, I'm pretty happy. I think he's obviously got to get in a little bit better shape. You can see him sort of, trailing at the end of games, but that's just the nature of the game and missing half a season. I like the effort. I think he's still got that defensive toughness, that ability to win pucks in the corner battles and things like that. So I think he makes the fourth line a lot more versatile. It allows Barry Trotz to either move up Beagle if he doesn't want Johansson in that third line center, or keep Beagle on the fourth line, and then you have a righty and a lefty who can both win a draw and are both really good in those scrappy areas. And then you've got a bunch of options for whoever goes on the other wing on that fourth line. So I think he makes the bottom six a lot more versatile. He's been really close to getting a point a couple different times, and a little bit of a better bounce, or the pass he made to Wilson against New Jersey. Wilson just didn't get a lot of good contact on it. Those plays are going to start going at some point. So obviously he's not what he was, and he's probably stapled to that bottom line for the most part. But for the cost, definitely a good pickup.
Do you like the idea, thinking postseason for a minute, having a Jay Beagle and a Mike Richards together on that line, and being able to, in a critical situation, you've got a guy that could be responsible in the faceoffs when you really need one?
Oh, I love it, and I think coaches are going to love it. You see them all the time try to put two centers on the ice, but now if you've got them two naturally, you keep them playing together all the time. If they get stuck with an icing, which we saw last year was a bit of a problem in the playoffs, You have a guy who can take a draw on the right. You have a guy who can take a draw on the left. You allow both of them to cheat on the first attempt because they know they've got a quality face-off guy behind them, and that is just going to help get a little bit of a jump defensively and hopefully end those long, sustained periods where you're just losing draws and being pinned in your zone.
Well, Rob, we appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with us. I'm sure we will do this again sometime soon, but always appreciate your insight and the work that you and JP and the rest of the crew do over there. You guys are fantastic. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.